is AI Exposed. The Hype Must Die Part 4. We didn't think we'd do a Part 4, but we got called back to do a year-end wrap-up of 2025 and give our modest predictions for 2026. It's been an incredible year, so we're going to run through it. And we've got a lot of content as usual, so apologies for going rather quickly, but just feel free to tee up any questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to tackle them at the very end. All right, let's get it going. So if you are not familiar with me, I'm Stuart McClure. I am 30 plus years in cybersecurity. The last 15 have been almost exclusively, or almost, yeah, a little bit more than that, in AI and algorithms and understanding how to apply that in a predictive nature inside of any solution. So I started an AI incubator called Number One, and our first company out of there is Wethos AI. Alan, do a quick intro.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here. Alen Capalik, like Stuart, I have 25, 30-year background in cyber and AI, and very excited to talk with Stuart this morning about our AI hype.
Yeah, we
Great.
have a lot of fun with these things. We keep it a little fast and loose, so apologies for any of that, but we'll try and get through it as quickly as possible. The real rules of engagement here is, as Sergeant Friday represented, we are just about the facts. We try not to get too emotional about any of this stuff, but at the end of the day, we are humans, so apologies up front. Yes, AI is incredibly invaluable, and it's just not always in the way that you might think of it. And things are going to get fast and messy as we get through all of this stuff. We do have some live demos at the very end, so hopefully you'll stay tuned for that, which will be a lot of fun. And we are using pretty much the latest models almost exclusively in everything that we show you. So it's not one of these like we're looking back to sort of prove something. We're looking at the current models. And please, I get this from time to time. Please don't take it too personally, but do keep us honest. Like if you feel like we've said something that's inaccurate, incorrect, or not representative, please let us know. And then again, just put those questions in the Q&A. And the reminder, demos are live. Unless I'm calling it out as a video embedded, it's going to be live. So that's sort of the fun part of it all. All right. So as you saw or heard before, we've done 3 of these this year. Our 4th now is the final one for the year and wrapping up 2025 and looking out at 2026. For those interested in Wethos AI and personal AI and delivering that in the workplace, you can go to the Wethos AI website. You go to sign in, and you can create your own account here, and you can try it out. So let me know what you think. All right, the famous line, you can't handle the truth. I think you guys can. I think you guys, the folks that really want to participate in this world of AI, want to look past the hype. They want to look at what can really be used and how we can apply all of this into our day-to-day lives to be better, to be smarter, to do more, and to be more well-informed. So that's what we're going to cover today, not just the predictions, but we're going to talk a little about the future with post-transformer AI and human in the loop and the requirement for that, and then really personal AI. That's what I want to end on. All right. So let's talk about the key concepts that have occurred or that we've talked about in the past. I want to make sure everybody keeps grounded here. If you work with AI a lot, grounding of AI is really important. So I'm going to ground us all right now with the difference between system 1 and system 2 bias, or system 1 and system 2 thinking, rather. System 1 is really about bias, it's impulse, it's instinct, it's the speed of decision making that keeps us alive. And that has a lot of strengths, but has a lot of limitations. And that is, well, they're endless. But then system 2 is really about stopping, slowing down your thinking, thinking forward, thinking backwards, thinking in parallel cycles and streams so that you can get a much more complete and better understanding. A simple example in the physical world is parallel parking in a tight space. Like you need to be physically, kinetically, and experientially a part of that decision making as you get into it. But yeah, learning new concepts, doing anything of complex calculations. But what we believe where we're all going in this space is leveraging AI at the speed of system 1. So, system 2 coming together with the speed of instinct of system 1 to deliver on a system 3 level. But you need that personal AI. So we'll talk about that. All right, and just a reminder, all of these models that are still being built as of to this day are all being built on a microscopic element of how much information the human brain has developed from. So if you take all the human thought since the beginning of time and you verbalize that, you've taken like a microscope or a microscopic element of that. If you take all the verbalized thoughts and you put it into what's being written down, that's a microscopic element of that, down to digitized words, down to use to train AI. So just remember that as we go forward. This is the big gap still to this day of all AI systems. Sure, it can look like it's doing deductive and inductive reasoning, but it is sort of doing it that way. But really, it does not have the concept of abductive or experiential reasoning. And this is the biggest limitation of AI and all the generalized LLMs out there today. Okay. So throughout the year, what we've done has been a little bit bold and made predictions, from the beginning all the way through around 2025 and what will happen. And I want to start that off with a video. So this video just came to us, a few weeks ago. You guys have probably saw it. It's around the Optimus robots. And we have, of course, been almost anthropomorphizing a lot of this stuff, wanting robots to be able to do our work, but we don't really know what's going on in the background. Like, how are they getting trained? Like, is this a long-term solution experientially, or is this more, generalized transformer LLMs trying to handle the telemetry coming in from the edge devices inside their purview and trying to make sense of it? But I want to show you this and explain what's happening. So here we have on demo day, right? You have a dying Tesla Optimus. And so what really happened? A lot of us sort of try to figure out, well, what was going on here? It just sort of like died and went backwards. But if you look closer, many people are speculating that the driver of that, the human driver of that, was wearing a VR headset so that it could control, and it took it off. And as soon as it took it off, then the machine died. And so this is probably a great sort of like segue into this period of discussion. So with 2025, we made a lot of predictions. Let's go through them. Some of them were right and dead on, and some of them were just wrong. Some of them are still somewhere in between. And I think it's sort of cool to be able to pull out and call out all these. So the ones that we got right, we said AI hype will continue to outpace reality. I know that's sort of like a master of the obvious prediction, but we've seen this now, and if you saw the MIT study in the summer around AI project adoption, that 95% of them are failing, was sort of more proof to that. So we got that generally right. We said picks and shovels would be the real gold rush winners. I think we were pretty much dead on there. So the chip makers, right? The data center developers, Alen, I know you track on this
Yeah,
stuff a lot. And then
for
system
sure. I
one
mean,
thinking. Yeah.
those are the guys who are actually running the place right now.
They're
So
running the place and they're driving a lot of this hype bubble. And it's probably going to be the first domino to start to fall is when they struggle or they stumble, even though they might have, stockpiles of cash. At some point, that cash will start to get, eaten into, and you'll start to destabilize the whole industry and probably, really realize that bubble. So the third one was system one thinking will remain a core limitation. It has, as we talked about, and I'm happy to go into it over and over again, but it's easy to sort of display that. It really is about the bias of the training data, and you'll see the bias throughout any LLM interaction. AI fails at abductive reasoning. We've said it, and it's pretty much held true throughout the year. In fact, Fortune sort of called this out in an article as well. Moravec's paradox continues to persist. That I think is without question. AI will not write 90% of the code. So we heard the CEO of Anthropic state by the end of the year, 90% of all code will be written by AI. Of course, that was a very self-serving comment. Alen, any thoughts?
well, I mean, that it's really this writes itself, right? Like it's not going to happen. Talk to any engineer. You might write 90% of the code, but not any code that you can actually use. So, you know,
Right. So Alan uses obviously AI throughout with all of our companies and all of our assets and all of our IP, and he can speak from direct experience. I vibe code, and I'm pretty dangerous at that. but even that is very limited in its use. It's great to sort of demo proof of concepts and, it makes wireframes come alive kind of thing. But other than that, it's very challenging, especially for full stack development. And especially if it's like supposed to be scalable and secure and all this stuff, forget it. It's certainly not 90% of all code. It's absurd. Transformer AI will end. This is now beginning. I'm going to go through this, so I don't want to harp on it, but we've got a whole slide and discussion around it. AI poses a major threat to IP. This is starting to come to bear. In fact, the Anthropic lawsuit, I searched and all of my books are in there. So all of my books are in the Anthropic domain. So Hacking Exposed, 1 through 7th edition, also all of the other ancillary threads on that. So there is a lot of back and forth, and I think their strategy, the frontier model strategy, is largely working though, which is like they're just going to ask for forgiveness, and then just sort of settle and pay the settlements out for the IP. AI generated disinformation is a societal scale problem. Yep, the deep fakes obviously are starting to come fast and furious, and the more personal we get, and the more personal our AIs get, the more I believe we could reduce that exposure and that risk dramatically. But we have to get to a really stable place of personalized AI. And then lastly, agentic AI breaks the blood-brain barrier. We did believe that this would occur, and it actually started. It has started to happen. If you are familiar with the Rabbit, a little device, Rabbit R1, the agent on there was built with hard-coded API keys. So rather than honor the authorization and authentication of the individual specifically, they put generalized keys in that allows for anybody that can reverse engineer the firmware and whatnot on that stack, the agent stack, which includes 11 Labs, Azure, SendGrid, Google Maps, all of their sort of API keys were disclosed in that. And so we saw that happen. Now, where we sort of missed the mark, or you could say 50-50, are some of these elements. So we said in the beginning, senior devs will be 10x using AI, and juniors will spin their wheels. That hasn't totally occurred. I think Alen can jump in, but basically I've seen senior devs maybe double or triple, and then juniors, maybe 0.5, to 1.5 to 2x in terms of being able to at least just accelerate some of their development. But anything complex still remains a very challenging place for AI.
You still need to know how to code.
You still need to know how to code. You still need to take the code that AI generates and make sense of it, right? And
Yes,
debug
yes,
it,
exactly.
transform it or whatnot, make it more secure. All right, efficient compute frontier is real. Well, it's generally out, or the jury's still out. It's hotly debated. Some that argue that frontier has shifted to these new architectures like mixture of experts. So system to reasoning models maybe are starting to help this a little bit. Model collapse will limit AI. I actually think that this is starting to happen, and it's happening maybe not as demonstrably as it will in 2026, but there will be limits, and we were starting to see this like with ChatGPT with the 5.2 or the 5 and then the 5.2 now. There are limits. Like 5.2 still gets it wrong on simple math. It's because you can't sort of duct tape and baling wire this stuff any further. You really have to get to an experiential world model, which we'll talk about. Humanity's last exam, which we thought, would really be the breakout final, system to test, system to reasoning. Really, yeah, it's still there, but ArcAGI has sort of led the charge towards the end. And then decline of human cognition. I'm starting to see this, but it's very early days. And we'll see more of it, I think, in 2026. All right, so here, let's go through the hype train in 2025 and call out some of the major elements we saw. So, AI researchers negotiating these, 9-figure, plus pay packages. Now, this was happening quite a bit in August, September, July. It sort of died down from all of that because of the blowback on it, but it was absolutely getting ridiculous. Some of the more grounding efforts, I don't know if anybody saw this, the Cerebral Valley AI Summit, which occurred in November, actually, of 2025, just last month. They actually predicted in the audience, or they surveyed the audience, asking if you could short $1 billion valuation startup, which one would it be? And the number one was Perplexity, number two was OpenAI. But then you had a lot afterwards: Cursor, Figure, Mercer, Mistral, and even NVIDIA, and I think Palantir came into that bunch. So a little bit of grounding on that I like. Let's see. So there has been, as you start to go through, EY did a survey of their organizations asking the extent AI adoption has improved company performance, and how so. And you could start to see that there is some usage and recognition of AI, but usage is still dramatically down. We talk to customers all the time, and usage of AI, just as a general rule, has gone dramatically down. So if you're surveying the users of AI, this is probably what they got here. And you can see, though, employee satisfaction, revenue growth, and cost savings really aren't starting to materialize yet. Now everybody's been trying to build the biggest data centers, and trying to prepare for the future, and all the hardware is going to go and the racks are going to go. But this has really triggered even the biggest beneficiaries of the hype to pull the reins a little bit, from the Google CEO to Microsoft, warning about the bubble potential for what we're doing. So we have more data on that in a little bit. And there is it's not without its consequences. We have huge energy needs with all of these data centers, which inevitably energy is not cheap and energy is not free. There's always a consequence to it. So we're starting to see the effect of these data centers, and not just in the energy, but you've probably seen some of the 60 Minutes episodes and others about the noise and the pollution that occurs from a lot of these data centers. So it's not a net zero some gain here. All right. This is the second priciest stock market in 155 years, and AI is why. So I would keep an eye on it if you haven't already. One of the big problems with it is obviously the circular revenue problem, and you probably have seen this, but there's secondary and tertiary and quaternary, whatever it's called, right? The fourth version of it, which is they try to sort of almost launder the progress and the revenue. So you'll say, okay, OpenAI commits to buy so many NVIDIA chips, and then NVIDIA invests the same amount in OpenAI stock. And so you get this quid pro quo. In the 2000s, a lot of companies got in trouble from a GAAP accounting perspective for this in the quid pro quo era. And now we're just seeing it all over again inside of AI. And I think one of the best ways to show this is with a little video. So here we go.
And speaking of money, how about the $20 you owe me?
Oh, yeah? Well, I only got 10, so here's 10, I owe you 10.
Thanks.
Hey, Mo, you owe me 20.
Well, here's 10, and I'll owe you 10.
You owe me 20.
Here's 10, I owe you 10.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Good, now we're all even.
I mean, it can't get better than that.
Yep.
When you get to Stooges.
Right.
All right. So is the Big Short 2.0 coming around the bend here? I think, if you watch folks like Ray Dalio, Michael Burry, Peter Thiel, many others, they are starting to pull out. They're starting to get and realize their gains, which is one of the earliest leading indicators of a potential bubble burst. So keep an eye out on that. We are absolutely seeing sort of the poisoning of data now, right? So if you look, this is a great visual to sort of represent all the elements that we're starting to see here. But like AI pages in Google top 10, it was 11% in May of 24. Now it's almost 20% of all all pages in the top 20 for Google. New pages with AI text has gone up dramatically. AI generated news domains was 49 in 2023. Now it's 1,271 in May of 25. The one that really gets me a little bit worked up is this next one. So PubMed, which is one of the gold standard sources of accurate research around the medical communities and healthcare, has been now almost infested like a virus with AI. And you can see that being tracked here. Now, when you dive into the data, you can maybe say, well, I don't know if that really is a good representation of an AI generated output. I think, maybe some of the wording elements on the left-hand side, you could probably argue, but on the right, these number of excess words, this is all AI. You're not going to get some like, all of a sudden from 2023 to 2024 now, all humans that are building out these publications to release are just getting more loquacious. It's just not going to happen. This is definitely AI. This is, again, abductive reasoning applied to this problem, right? And we're seeing it pretty clearly. So the number of excess words per year is just absolutely exploded. All right. This one is a fun one. I know Alan likes to share his thoughts on this one.
Yeah, this just keeps proving the fact that, like, you cannot rely on AI. You have to look over its shoulder. You can't. Anything is possible, non-deterministic, like, and then it can destroy your work. Like, it's just, and this keeps happening nonstop. We have other examples of this as we
Well,
go
this
along,
happened
but
when, right, July of 25, but this just happened now with Google's tool as well. So
yes, the anti-gravity. That's right.
anti-gravity, exactly. So this vibe coding disaster, leveraging AI obviously all along the way, actually started to delete entire databases. Okay. Same thing now with
Right.
anti-gravity, who just came out. Is now fairly well regarded, I think, in the space. Alan, you can vouch or to
Yeah,
speak.
they released, as they released Gemini 3, I think what they did is they leveraged some of the windsurf acquisitions that they did, like, and tried to release the IDE because everybody's doing that, right? Cursor is quote unquote doing well. But then it just wasn't nowhere. I tried to test it, and it was like it was nowhere near ready to do anything. And obviously, some of these people who don't understand, like, what this all means and everything, they try to use it, and like this is what happens. Oh, by the way, Google does not allow their devs to use anti-gravity internally, but they have released it onto the world in order to destroy your work. So yeah.
Well, I don't even know where to begin on this one. If this is true, which, again, come from reputable sources, not AI generated, best we can tell, all of this is live human experiential reporting, then this is a problem, right? If Google can't even endorse their own IDE, but this is another example of deleting entire drives, entire databases, entire contents. So we kept hoping, okay, GPT-5, this is going to be it. GPT-5 is going to be AGI, by the way. I don't know if you remember those claims, Alan.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
okay, sure. So
Push or go home.
five came out and was claimed to going to be a PhD level expert in any area. Well, not exactly. It was met in the community with a lot of disappointment, and a lot of it not being very helpful whatsoever. I believe, this is the first signs of seeing that synthetic or the model collapse element. Now, the big push in 2025 was to accommodate for model collapse with all the synthetic data, which I think in certain cases can really help, but in other cases, I think you're just duct taping the crack in the dam. It's gonna pop out. And there have been sort of countless problems, right, with 5 itself, and even with 5.2, which we'll talk about in a second. So, as in response to Gemini's release of 3.0, which was very solid. In terms of LM Arena, I think it's still up there, right? I don't know. It might have been just displaced. He called it the code red moment for OpenAI. He sent famous memo or notes out to all employees saying we've got to rally around. We got to get 5.2 out. This is going to solve everybody's problems, blah, blah, blah. But of course, somebody did the simple math of, okay, great. So 5.2, the smartest thing in the world. So do 5.9 minus 5.11. And of course, it says, nope, you're off. It's incorrect. So again, it's just really challenged by some of the most simplest things. But of course, it can look brilliant in certain cases when you give it enough data and information. It'll look absolutely magical. All right, agent washing, we've seen a lot of layoffs this past year. I'm not sure if we went through each and every single one of them, by the way. I actually believe either one of two things have happened. Number one, They leveraged the AI agent story or the using of AI as sort of a smokescreen to start to lay off folks just in general. Maybe they probably were planning on doing it already, for sure. And then for the others, they've actually started to rehire them back. And this is just three stories, but I've tracked on dozens of these kinds of things. So it's really going to be interesting. Even Gartner is sort of weighing in on this one, saying agentic AI projects will be canceled by end of 2027, 40%. And that may be true. I think it's going to be far greater than that. Now, so you have that side of the picture of AI, and then you have these amazing breakthroughs, right? And they're just starting to do this. I don't know if you'd say that they're creating brand new inventions yet or brand new physics yet, maybe, but you can definitely say that these certain projects are absolutely blowing people away. First one, Alpha Genome, right? AI for understanding the genome. This is going to be this is tremendously helpful. It's been tremendously helpful, and it will continue to be in terms of understanding the DNA of self. Everything that happens to us begins and ends with our genetic code. Like if you've gotten involved with your genes at all or done a full whole genome sequencing, you'll know what I'm talking about. And applying it to that world, which is astronomical. It's like over 3 billion pairs of your genes. 3 billion. You can't even like conceptualize that. And then any combination become, a problem or a positive for you in your life. But second, Alan, why don't you talk about the math solution?
Yeah, yeah. This one was I mean, this one keeps happening. Google did the same thing with with the Alpha Evolve, where they basically solved the matrix multiplication thing. So when you apply the AI in this way to actually work on a problem, that is hard that has to recognize patterns and things like that. Like I think that this is where it actually really shines. And I think that this is where we can actually make some really good progress, in mathematics and in physics, in medicine and stuff like that. But again, that you can't just remove scientists from this, right? That's the whole point on the on
I
the
think
thing. You
that is
can't
the
just
whole
remove
point
them.
of all these, right? It's like
Right.
you can see revolutions in math and science, but the human has to be at the beginning and the end of it, like without a doubt,
Yes.
in terms of
Yes.
curating this. This was the Alpha Evolve 4x4 matrix multiplication problem that Alan's talking about. And this was dramatic and dramatically going to help AI and how we build deep learning models for sure. But again, it uses sort of the same foundational mathematics. It just extended it. I'm not seeing it create brand new forms of math or brand new forms of physics. It's still using what it's sort of been trained on as the basis and it's extending it. I think we are saying that part. And we are seeing great applications inside of healthcare. I'm involved quite a bit in a number of healthcare organizations here in around Southern California, and I see it all the time. Using AI. There's something called AI Doc, or they pronounce it iDoc, something like that. And all decisions can be leveraged through this AI Doc platform. But here's a radiological example of AI finding fractures or finding cancers in breast, for example, with breast cancer. Years before any radiology tech is going to see it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's 100% accurate. The human still has to take a look at it, pull in the other abductive reasoning elements inside of that to make the final judgment. But in this case, with St. Luke's University Health Network, it actually reduces misfractures by up to 30%, which is, I could have used this actually. I went to hospital, what was it, like 3 years ago? I crashed on my bike and I went in and I'm like, oh, my ribs, I think I broke my ribs. My wrist is sore too, but I think I broke my ribs. They took pictures, everything. They're like, nope, nothing's broke. And I go, well, I can't even use my arm, my hand. Like, are you sure? Are you sure? go back, take a look at it, and sure enough, there's a radial fracture and there's a fracture right here in my wrist that they had completely missed. But because I pushed for it, and I'm like, look, I'm not leaving until you look again. Like we got to check this out. Um, Even Google. So the Google project Greenlight's a really interesting one where we are starting to see the application of AI inside of that for intelligent traffic light navigation, saving fuel and lowering emissions. We've also seen this for fire hazard detection. So using AI cameras to spot wildfires early. These are a lot of the positives that we're starting to see AI in. I have not braved the Waymo taxi yet. Have you, Alan?
No, I'm not, but my brother uses it like religiously. He loves it,
Really?
and his
Oh,
family.
wow.
Oh my God, he
Okay.
will not call anything else but Waymo. Yeah.
Our colleague Darren told a story of getting in one of these guys and then having it sort of overshot the destination, and it was across the street where he had to cross 4 lanes of traffic, quickly. It was not fun. So there's more abductive reasoning limitations here. It does not learn from experience per se, although, the Waymo system might have a little bit of experiential learning.
No, but it's very. I think it's what this shows. All these things, what they show is that that AI is incredibly good in pattern recognition, right? All these things have patterns, right? And
Mhm.
we're not that great in doing those things. So what it
Right.
can do is it can point us in the right direction and cut down on a lot of time that you would have to get to those patterns. And I think that that's where really a good, a good thing is happening right now with AI.
You're right, exactly. So what we are seeing GPT-5, hitting a wall in reasoning. But yeah, yet, we can solve these 40-year math problems. And this really does sort of go back to the fact that you need the human in the loop. You need the human expert in the loop to apply that experiential learning, to apply the empathy, to apply the critical thinking past the normal, and to apply longer term memory. I mean, it's one of the biggest challenges of all the LLMs today. There is literally no memory. I mean, yeah, you can summarize little things in chats and stuff like that and put it into a database, but there's no real memory. I mean, you have the context windows, which are super small and they don't seem to be getting any bigger. And then you have the output, so that's the input and the output windows, which just make it super limited. So, all right, let's move on now to 2026 predictions. So, are we going to put our head into the sand, or are we actually going to look at this and figure out, where the problems are going to be and start to solve for them? That'll be the big question. All right, so the AI problem. So there are two problems to this in my book. There's the people problem and the AI problem. Let's go with the AI problem first. So what we have today is word prediction, by and large, based on the foundational elements of the training. And that is not life experience, which is what pretty much all of these people are building brand new companies with, multi-billion dollar pre-money valuations with multi-billion dollar checks going to them to build world models. Now, world models are simply experientially trained models, okay? And there are a number of different techniques that people are researching, but I think it was really important. So first, Jan LeCun, who we've been talking about now for quite some time, was really way ahead of everybody in terms of calling this out. And we very much subscribe and have since the beginning to the way Jan has been thinking about this. Richard Sutton recently came out as well around the limitations of these large language models. Andre and Ilya both came out in podcasts recently talking about this as well, that the limitations are really going to require us to go back to research to solve this problem. That's why Ilya was talking about it so much in his podcast. And same thing with Dr. Lee. She's been talking about this all year. It's just going to struggle. It's never going to get to that place of full AGI. I think we've all sort of seen this now. So what does the post-transformer era in really 2026 we think look like? It's going to be small, it's going to be smart, and it's going to be hyper specialized. And it's going to be personal. And we're going to talk about the personal side in a second. So this includes everything from the architecture to the logic to the context and to the deployment. Architecture-wise, it needs to be continuous learning, nested learning. Like I don't care what you can call it whatever you want. You can start to research on all the platforms that might solve for this. Liquid neural nets is one of them. Learning on the fly and forgetting nothing. Again, the memory problem. So we don't have this today. Okay. Logic, neuro-symbolic AI, right? Maths not as a prediction, but as as understanding. Logic engines and hallucination reduction. And then context. We need to have near infinite context that's cheap and zero latency that we don't have today. Inference costs. I mean, I was up in the valley last week and I heard from numerous investors. Look, the old days of SaaS used to be like 80% margins. Now, if you're over 20% margins, no one wants to invest in you because you're not spending enough money on infrastructure. And then finally, deployment. We are starting to see some really interesting chips now that can be at the edge. So, like, think of a video camera with a chip that can actually learn what the difference is between a human walking and a dog walking by versus a brush waving in the wind. But learning on chip, like on the device. I think this is going to be this edge sort of learning might be a big part and blow up this year. So finally, all this is coming into what I believe to be this personal AI world. We need to be able to provide this hyper-personalization throughout all of our experiences with AI, or AI will not be used. I think this is our prediction for 2026, certainly mine. So we are tracking on what we call Epoch, which is the MIT Sloan framework now for where this human and machine come together. And it starts with empathy and emotional intelligence, or you can call it EQ. You can talk about presence and networking and connectedness, opinion, judgment, ethics, creativity, imagination, hope, and vision. All of these have to come to bear inside of this personal AI layer that us and others are starting to work on. So as AI gets smarter, it moves from this assistant era, which is really pattern matching system one, and really is labeler, to agentic era, which we believe we're trying to grow into now which is really system two, chain of thought, mixture of experts, and logic and reasoning based as a supervisor of workflows. But ultimately, we really believe we're going to start to get to this potential for system three, which is at scale, doing system one and two at scale with human as the orchestrator, human as the final control gate of decision making. So that we become as humans strategic judges, right? And we become the ones that apply ethics and EQ and all of the rest of it to the output of AI agents. And without the human in the loop, it will fail. So what I want to show you is, okay, so let's talk about personal AI. And I think the belief is really this is going to blow up. And when we do get hyper-personalized AI, what we really will get is coherence and cognition, being able to actually understand each other, but understand how we all work together to produce the final, the output of a team. And it really does start with understanding self first. So remember I talked about the AI problem. Well, this is the human problem. The human problem is the brain is quite limited. I mean, there's incredible capabilities the brain has, but there are some really stark limitations. And I'm going to play this video for you. These are all celebrities that you recognize very carefully, very closely. But if you look at that center X as the faces flash around you and you stare at that X, what'll start to happen is you'll start to see those faces absolutely turn into monsters, some grotesque images. You can look left and right, though, and all of a sudden they come back normal, right? Look left and right, now go back to the X. So the eyes become warped, the nose, the foreheads, the lips. This is because your brain can only take on and process the information that is in its focus area. The rest of it on the periphery, you make up in your head. The brain makes it up for you based on your biases, experiential biases. So this is the human problem, okay? Without focusing on it, you are actually responding to and thinking that it's something totally different. And this is a visual example, but you could do it auditorially, you can do it kinetically and experientially. It is a limitation of the brain. So if you know that, you can move forward with it. All right. So what we need to have is a complete system around artificial individual intelligence and personal AI. And this is what we've built at Wethos. So taking in those experiences and memories, certainly as the system one, those imprints, and the traits and biases that naturally form as part of the blueprint of a human mind, And then layer on this temporal and contextual elements that are occurring all the time in real time to then be seen through the prism of the dimensions that you present yourself to. There's a political self that you present, there's a financial self, there's an emotional self, personal, professional, spiritual, physical, psychological, all of these things. And understanding all those dimensions of self and building that into understanding you so that we know exactly how you think and how you behave and how you act and how you make decisions. And then we can help guide those decisions to meet your ultimate objective. So if you have an objective, XYZ, hey, I want to be a CEO one day. Well, great. Well, how do we get you from where you are today to being a CEO? You specifically, not just in generalities. And I think this is what we're calling the System 3 thinking realization. All right, now we are going to switch over now to a special guest that will hopefully demonstrate the value of this personal AI. We call it XO here at Wethos. And let me do that first. Let me switch over. Hopefully everybody sees this. Now I'm going to engage. Now, this is the Wethos platform, but I'm going to show you a beta feature called XO Voice that will hopefully bring this all together.
Hello there. How can I help you today?
Hi there. What's your name?
I am Wethos XO, your workplace coach. How can I assist you?
Well, given the specifics of you knowing me and what you know about me and how I process information and relate to the world and organize my life, explain quantum mechanics to me.
Quantum mechanics is the study of how things behave at the very smallest levels, like atoms and even smaller particles. Instead of being predictable like bigger things, these tiny particles can be in multiple places or have different properties at the same time. It's all about probabilities and the idea that observing something can change its behavior. It's a fascinating field that describes how the universe works at its most fundamental level. Does that give you a good overview?
That helps, yes. Now, how would you have answered that question about quantum mechanics if you did not know me as personally as you do?
If I didn't know you personally, I would probably explain quantum mechanics in a more general way, focusing on the core concepts without tailoring the explanation to your specific understanding. I would likely describe it as the branch of physics that deals with the behavior of matter and energy at the atomic and subatomic levels, highlighting the principles of quantization, wave-particle duality, and uncertainty. The explanation would be more general and less personalized, focusing on the scientific aspects without relating it to your specific way of understanding things.
So what specific behavioral traits and cognitive biases that you know about me was incorporated into your answer for me in a personalized way?
Based on your Wethos style, which emphasizes innovative thinking and a focus on big ideas, I tailored the explanation to connect quantum mechanics to those aspects. I focused on the conceptual nature of probabilities and the mind-bending ideas of particles being in multiple places at once, which aligns with your interest in innovative concepts and exploring complex ideas. I aim to present the information in a way that resonates with your natural inclination towards big-picture thinking.
Thank you. So this is what we call personal AI. So unlike generalized AI and its general answers, we respond with hyper-personalization.
Yes, exactly. Personal AI focuses on adapting its interactions and responses to the individual user, taking into account their specific preferences, behaviors, and individual styles. This allows for a more personalized and effective interaction, compared to generalized AI that provides more standard responses.
Okay, now I want you to take on a new persona of an AI expert. Do you think that we're in an AI bubble today? And what would be the leading indicators to watch the bubble burst?
As an AI expert, I can say that there's definitely a lot of excitement and investment in AI technology right now, which could be seen as reminiscent of a potential bubble. Key indicators to watch for a possible downturn would include a slowdown in venture capital funding for AI startups, a decrease in the perceived value of AI-driven companies, and a potential shift in market sentiment regarding the long-term profitability of AI technologies. Additionally, increased regulatory scrutiny or significant setbacks in AI development could also signal a shift.
So, what alternatives to the transformer-based AI architectures will likely grow stronger in 2026?
In 2026, we might see increased adoption of alternative AI architectures, such as recurrent neural networks with more advanced mechanisms and graph neural networks, which are well suited for complex data structures. Additionally, hybrid models combining the strengths of
Thanks. So, what about speculation around 2026 in general for AI? What predictions do you have?
Looking ahead to 2026, we can anticipate further advancements in AI capabilities, particularly in areas like natural language processing and computer vision, leading to more sophisticated applications. We might also see greater integration of AI into everyday technologies and more accessible AI tools for businesses and individuals. However, challenges related to ethics, bias, and security will continue to be significant considerations as AI becomes more prevalent. The focus will likely be on responsible AI development and deployment.
Thanks so much. You've been very helpful. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help. Feel free to reach out if you have any more questions in the future. Have a great day.
All right. So with this personal AI, what can you do, right? Not just get that personal content, that personal summarization, that personal engagement with AI at every step, but now you can be so much more productive and efficient and effective, not just individually, but in a team. So this is what I want to show you. So
Absolutely.
Sorry, hold on a second. All right.
No problem.
Okay, we'll shut her up. All right, so let's go into where workplace misalignment really occurs and why WethosXO is so dramatic and dramatically helpful. What we've done, Alen did, is plug in agents inside of Minecraft. If you have kids or had kids, you'll know that Minecraft's a fun, immersive experience game that you build, you source materials, and you build in, and you share as a community. So he plugged in 2 general AIs, and he plugged in Wethos AIs, and asked it the same simple question: build me a 2-story house. So let's see what happens. So on the left is the general AI, so OpenAI and Gemini. As you can see, they're talking, but rather slowly back and forth, and they get a little frustrated on the left. So one of the agents just goes and builds the foundation right there in bricks. Then on the right-hand side, you're seeing Wethos AIs come together to discuss very quickly and very collaboratively the first floor of the house. Now, back over on the left, you see the second agent actually just built its own house over here, sort of giving up on the first agent. And then you have the second agent there building now the walls of their house. And they are attached and shared to a wall here, but they're 2 separate houses completely. They just gave up working on it together. You go back to the right with Wethos, and you can now see they're finishing up on the roof and putting in the windows and starting to get the house to be, near perfect. It's not perfect. They miss a door on here, right? But they've got windows and they've got all the other elements. Go back to the general. Now, here's the trick. If you see, I'm going to pause it right at the end here. Well, I was going to. Hold on a second. You can see that what happens is, look at the time it took for general AI versus Wethos to come up with these. So number one, general AI took about 25 minutes, and it produced 3 different houses, okay? Completely, other than shared wall, completely disconnected. And on the right with Wethos, it took less than 6 minutes, and we got I would say 95% accurate house. This is what personal AI delivers into you and your teams as you work. All right, so just in wrapping up, and then we'll open up to questions if there's any. But as we keep saying all along the way, AI is an incredible tool. Just know how to wield it. No, the Zweihander, which is the 2-sword or two fist or 2-hand. That's it. Yeah, 2-hand is what Zweihander means in German. 16th century German sword is 6 foot long. But you need to know how to wield this thing, or you're going to cut yourself. There's no doubt about it. So building that cognitive muscle to wield it with power is really what we're here for and what we're trying to help everybody understand. So thank you all. humans and AI, I guess I should say, for participating. And if we have any questions, we'll take it now, but otherwise we'll give you a little time back. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, Oracle's RPO just hit 523 billion, nearly 10x its annual revenue as this record break backlog, a signal of a generational shift in AI architecture, a massive capital expenditure bubble to burst. I believe, and Alan, I'd love your thoughts here too, but I think it's part of the problem. It's part of the bubble. I don't think there's some magical secret. I mean, I believe, here's my theory. Everybody's investing in all of this data center infrastructure. That's going to happen. Some will fall out eventually because of, lack of debt payment if it takes too long to build and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, all of those data centers are going to be built. Now, they might not be housing the same hardware in 5 years as they will today, but those data centers and in large part the AI supply chain will still be robust because we'll be repurposing the learning and the research now to move away from transformer based into more experiential learning systems. And so I do believe that while it's a part of the bubble, it's not the most critical element of the bubble. I do think that the data center has longevity.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that everybody should kind of listen to is the podcast that Andrea Elia did, and they're very, very informative, especially if you know what they're talking about as far as technologically. Elia was talking about how like these guys are trying to solve the transformer model limitations with just adding more compute, and that's what everybody starts to throw in more. They're just thinking that if we throw more compute, these models are going to become much bigger, and we're going to get closer to the AGI. And the guys who actually invented some of this stuff, which is, Ilya, in no small part, Ilya, Andre, and the rest of these guys have basically like started thinking about, okay, well, that is not what's going to do it, right? And I think that a lot of companies are actually realizing this right now. And, I think while they're going to continue building, and we do need compute for AI, there's going to be a reckoning for sure, because the underlying technology for AI, which is transformers-based models and deep neural networks, it is not a technology that's ultimately going to bring us to AGI. It's not. We're going back to research. We talked about this for a while. I've been doing a lot of research for the last couple of years on the test time learning, right? In memory, understanding things as you go along, like learning from people as you talk to them, like stuff like that. AI cannot do any of these things. And while the context windows are becoming bigger, well, they've kind of stopped at like 200K and 1 million K and stuff like that. Even in those context windows, when you hit around 200,000 to 250,000, the AI start getting confused, and that's a big problem we have here. It does not learn on the fly.
I can vouch for that. I use it every day in very, very large context, as large as you can get context windows, and it constantly gets confused. I have to constantly ground it to accuracy, and it's just the nature of the transformer. All right.
Yep.
Next we have, does Wethos offer a data-driven path to improving rework rates? Or is it simply vibe management rebranded for the AI industry? I love that. Okay. No, our metrics are very real in real time in and around how people work together better. So we have something called alignment score. We have decision velocity. We have friction indexes. All of these things are measured in real time so that you can see the value dominantly. We'll also have AI usage rates, which is what personal AI is really starting to increase on, is people want to use it because it's hyper-personalized. It's not general. So we are really starting to see that inside of Wethos itself. Next question, as a victim of an AI layoff, what can I do to help AI-proof my work experience beyond just adopting AI for productivity? I think that's a great question. I mean, if you've been a part of an AI layoff, first of all, don't get bummed out. They might be calling you again to hire you or rework, or maybe you don't want to go back there and you just want to move on, which I think is great too. I think in general, understand AI a bit better and how to leverage it to accelerate your productivity and your output, both in quality and in quantity, but quality more so. You need to stand out from everyone else. And AI can allow you to do that, but it has to be hyper personalized, and it can't be so foreign to you or orthogonal to you that it doesn't come across as you and you don't believe it and you don't buy it, so you can't sell it. So that's where that personal layer really is so important and critical. And then we got how important is the accuracy of the prompt fed into an LLM? Accuracy of the prompt. I mean, you need to, Steve, thanks for that one. You need to certainly ground it, what we call grounding it with truth. If you ground it with falsehood, it can get it confused quite quickly. Um, and I get reminded of an example of me working with Gemini 2.5, and oh, actually no, I think it switched to 3.0 when this happened, and asking advice on complex health issue. And it produced the answer. And at the end, it said, make sure you're inconsistent with this protocol. And I looked at it, I'm like, you want me to be inconsistent with the protocol? Like that experientially in my life, that doesn't sound like the right thing to be recommending. So I go, wait a second. Do you mean inconsistent or do you mean consistent with the protocol? Be consistent. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right. Now, if I hadn't stopped it right there and I had just followed it all on, oh, yeah, okay, I need to be inconsistent then. I need to do it tomorrow, but maybe not for 3 more days. And then I need to do it in a week. And then I would have had a very different health outcome. And this is again why, yes, accuracy of the prompt, so to speak, which is the human, is very important. But even if it is perfectly accurate, you're going to get confusion, especially as these context windows continue to get filled up, and then the window starts to move past.
I'm gonna, I guess, just expand a little bit on that. When it comes to accuracy, obviously, there's a term that says garbage in, garbage out. If you're not accurate, you're gonna get something that's not accurate, right? However, what's most important for everybody out there who want to work with AI is that you are very clear about what you want AI to do for you. So when you're actually when you're doing the context engineering and prompt engineering and everything, the best results you're going to get out of AI is we can explain it to AI exactly what you want it to do. Because if you become too vague, you're going to get vague answers, and things are going to eventually fail because you're going to try to guess what you're trying to do, right? They're going to try to guess exactly what you're trying to do, and when you start guessing what you want to do is when you get hallucinations. So the more specific you are with AI, what you want it to do, the better results you're going to get.
All right, final question, then we got to end it. Which AI company would be Shemp in the Three Stooges quid pro quo scenario? I think that's the perfect question to end on. And we'll leave it up to you guys to decide. I mean, they certainly applied Shemp. I can't remember which one was Shemp in that video, but you could certainly pick your poison on that one. All right, everybody, thank you so much for participating. Thank you, Alen. Thanks, Sarah, and thank everybody. We'll look for you in 2026. Have a great holidays and enjoy them. Hopefully get some downtime. All right. Take care. Bye.
Happy holidays, man. Happy New Year.
All right. Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye.